So let's start with applying the no arbitrage principle to the forward prices. So we will focus on forward prices rather than futures prices because forward prices are simpler. We don't have to worry about daily settlement, marking to market. So we'll just think about forward prices rather than futures prices. And we will think about the relationship between forward prices and the spot prices of the underlying asset. As I mentioned last time, this relationship we are going to talk about is not really determining one of the two prices. What we are stating is that if there's no arbitrage opportunity, then there should be a specific relationship between forward price and spot price. So if we know one of the two, using the equation, we can talk about the other one. But if we don't know one of the two, then of course we don't know any of these two prices. Okay? So in that sense, we are not talking about determining prices. We are only talking about the relationship between these two prices. And as I emphasized last time, these two are in symmetric relationship. It's not like one of the two is determined first and then the other one is determined. In reality, these two prices are determined simultaneously. So if you think about KOSPI 200 and KOSPI 200 futures, they are determined at the same time. It's not like KOSPI prices are determined first and then futures price is determined, or futures price is determined and then KOSPI prices are determined. They are determined at the same time. So while we typically walk from one to the other in class like this, in reality, there is no order. They are determined at the same time. So in that sense, learning this relationship doesn't help us to predict forward prices because if you don't know the spot price, you can't tell what the forward price is. So in terms of forecasting, we don't solve any problem. We are only saying we know what the forward price should be if we know the spot price. But if we don't know the spot price, then we don't know the forward price. So that's the relationship that we want to talk about. And finally, the relationship we are going to talk about here is always true in reality, unlike the relationship that we will talk about based on the equilibrium ideas, which will be the topic, the next topic. So let's start with an example. Let's say we have a 3-month gold forward contract. So with this contract, if you are in the long side, then you are agreeing that you will pay cash, some money, and receive gold 3 months later. If you're in the short side, then you have obligation to deliver gold in exchange for the payment of some money. And the forward price is $1,100 for 100 troy ounces. And spot price for the same unit is $1,000 currently. So currently you can buy this 1 unit of gold for $1,000. And in the forward contract, the forward price is $1,100. And let's say the annual interest rate expressed in log is 4%. So what's the interest rate for 3 months then? Simple interest rate for 3 months. Log rate will be 1% for 3 months, and the simple rate will be how much? Again, how do you get to simple rate from log rate? Exponential.
Exponential to the power of 4
divided by how much? 4 divided by what?
4.
Yes, okay. So that's going to be exponential 0.01 minus 1 is going to be the simple rate for 3 months implied by this log interest rate. So we have these three numbers, the forward price, spot price, and interest rate. And we are asking whether these numbers are okay, whether these numbers make sense, whether there will be an arbitrage opportunity. If there is an arbitrage opportunity, then of course, one of these three numbers cannot be true. So that's what we are going to find. We will say that that's not true. So one of the three should be different. Now, what kind of arbitrage opportunity you can think of? So imagine this is really the case. Then somebody told you, you can make a lot of money in this situation. What would you need to do to make a lot of money in this situation? That's what we are going to think about now. So one way to think about whether it makes sense is, imagine you get into the long side of this forward contract and see what happens. So if you are in the long side, then at the moment you don't need to pay any money. So let's say now and 3 months later. So right here. So long. So if you take long forward position, then you don't pay anything now. So it's going to be 0. You don't receive any money. 3 months later, what happens is with the forward contract, you need to pay, how much do you need to pay? $1,100 is what you need to pay. So let's write it as minus 1,100 minus, meaning that that's the cash outflow from your perspective. And then you receive gold in return. And let's say you are going to sell this gold in the market. Then you will get paid the spot price, which we don't know how much. So let's just write it as a symbol. As before, let's call that spot price as capital T. So when you close your long forward position, your profit or your payment, you will receive the spot price at that time minus 1,100. If the spot price is lower than 1,100, you would have to pay. If spot price is higher than this, you will receive some money. So that's what will happen from your long forward contract. Now, if you just, stop with this thing, of course, you don't know this amount, so you don't, it's unclear what will happen out of this. So let's add a few more things into this story. So one thing you could imagine is you can just buy gold right now, or you can, if it's long position, then well, let's just change into short. Maybe that's easier to think. Short position, short forward, and plus minus. Either way, it doesn't matter, but just to make the story. And let's say you take short forward position and also buy gold in the spot market now. So long spot. So if you go to spot market right now and buy gold, then right now you need to pay $1,000 to buy gold in the marketplace. 3 months later, you can sell your gold and you will receive this S capital T from your goal. So the reason why we think about this situation is if we just combine these two, then this S capital T will disappear. So we don't have to worry about the spot price in the future. And it's certain that you will receive $1,100 from the combined position. And now, just to complete the story, let's say instead of spending your own $1,000, let's say you borrow the money from banks. So borrow from a bank. So that's the last component. So if you borrow $1,000 now, so that you have cash inflow of $1,000, then 3 months later, what will happen? How much money do you need to pay back to bank? And we calculated that here. So this is the interest rate. So you add 1 again, then what you remain is you need to multiply 1,000 by this number. So what you have is 1,000 minus 1,000 times exponential 0.01. Okay, so that's the situation. If you take short forward position and long spot position, underlying spot position, and borrow money so that you don't need to pay any money initially, then out of these three positions, the initial cash flow is 0. You don't so from these three positions, you don't pay any money, you don't receive any money. So the cash flow is 0. 3 months later, the influence of the spot price will disappear because you actually have gold, and you can just pass your gold to the counterparty of the forward contract. So you receive $1,100, and this amount is $1,000 and about 1%. But is this greater than 1% or less than 1%? It's greater than 1%. So this amount is in fact greater than $1,010, but much less than $1,100, whatever it is. Okay? So therefore, we can tell that the whole position will give you some money, about $90, a bit less than $90. So in the end, you don't pay any money, $0, and you receive about $90 3 months later. And there is no risk because everything is known about here. This unknown part will cancel out each other. And therefore, you know how much you will receive exactly, which is slightly less than $90. So there is no risk. And therefore, this is an arbitrage opportunity. And what we claimed earlier is that such opportunity cannot exist in real life, because if there's such opportunity indeed, you can get in and make huge amount of money. You don't have to buy one contract. You will probably want to buy all the contracts that you can buy as soon as you see an opportunity like this. So this opportunity cannot stay and it will disappear immediately. And what should happen is that one of these three numbers should be adjusted immediately. The forward price, spot price, and interest rate, one of these three numbers should be adjusted immediately so that this opportunity will disappear. Okay, so let's change this number with symbol and see what should happen. Say something more general. So instead of the 1,100, let me write here as forward price, which is FT instead of 1,100. And the long spot price, I will use S small t to indicate long spot price right now. And this number also came from the spot price. So here I'll just write again S small t. And 1000 here again is coming from S small t. And 0.01 here is coming from the annual log interest rate, which I will call RT. So it's RT divided by 4. Instead of 4, let me again use the symbol. So I'll call it capital T minus small t, where capital T in terms of number of years so all the capital T, small t, they are expressed in terms of number of years. So the distance between current point in time, and 3 months later, the difference is 3 months, but in terms of year, this number should be 0.25, 1 over 4. That's how we are going to use this symbol. The small t may be 2020.25 or something like that. And the capital T may be 2020.0.5 or something like that. So that the difference is 0.25. That's how we are going to use this symbol. Of here is we are going to think about we are going to convert dates into number. So today is 2022 March 31st. 3 months later, it's going to be 2022 June 30th or 31st, 30th. And we want to convert this into some number. So one way to convert this number is I'm going to write this as 2022.25 because it's only a quarter of the year passed at this point. And instead of June 30th, I'm going to write it as 2022.5 because half of the year passed. Then when you take the difference between these two numbers, we have exactly 0.25. Okay, so the capital T, small t, I want to treat them as numbers. And the way, you can come up with some different scheme, it doesn't matter, as long as 1 year difference is translated into number 1, then we are fine. That's how we are going to use this symbol. That's convenient because the interest rate will be always quoted as annualized log rate, and therefore 1 year should be 1, 2 years should become 2, etc. 3 months should be 0.25, 6 months should be 0.5, etc. So using that symbol, then in the end, what we are saying is that to eliminate arbitrage opportunity, when you add these 3 numbers, we should get exactly 0. So if you add this number, S capital T will disappear. And what remains is F small t minus S small t times exponential RT times T capital T minus T. So I think I wrote it here. So is it exactly the same? Yes, it's exactly the same way. So let me just use this table since I already wrote it down with the same notation. So again, there are 3 components. So you have a short forward position. From short forward position, no cash flow. Eventually, you receive the forward price minus spot price. If spot price is higher, you lose. If spot price is lower, you gain. So that's what we have. Second component, you have long spot position. from the long spot position, you pay the spot price now. Later, you receive the spot price from that date, from the future date. And third component, you borrow from bank. How much you borrow? You borrow the spot price. And later, you pay the interest, where the interest is written as the interest rate, annualized low interest rate times 0.25, because it's for 3 months and using exponential. And when you add these three numbers, the ST will disappear. So all you have is F small t minus the payment for your borrowed money. So this number, and what we are saying is that this number should be zero. This number should be zero, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Okay. So from this exercise, what we can say is that ft, let me write this thing again, exponential rt capital T minus small t times st should be exactly zero. That's what we can conclude from this analysis. So when you look at this equation, what are we supposed to think about? So we are comparing two alternative things to do. One of the two things we are comparing to is we are thinking of buying something in the spot market. So this is the cost of buying something in the spot market. The other side is alternatively, we are thinking of buying the same thing in the forward market. And this part represents the cost of buying this thing in the forward market. And now you should be able to see why this is the cost of buying thing in the forward market, because FT represents the amount that you agree to pay. And this is the present value of that amount. So we are thinking of the present value of how much it costs to buy things in the forward market. And we are comparing that to cost of buying the same thing in the spot market. And considering these two possibilities, cost of doing one or the other should be identical. And that's why we can say the left-hand side should equal to the right-hand side. So that's the main story here, that we are comparing two. Since these two give you exact same satisfaction, the cost of doing one should be identical to the cost of doing the other. So that's the application of no arbitrage principle. Again, we are thinking of 3-month gold forward contract, and the spot price is as before $1,000. Annual interest rate, annualized log rate is again 4%. And let's say without this thing, for now, let's ignore this thing. Then what should be the forward price again? Can you write down the formula here yourself without looking at the next slides? So is that right? Did everyone get the same number? Okay. So without this, I mean, you should be able to get number right away. Again, the forward price should be same as spot price, exponential, capital T minus small t, interest rate RT. So that's what we just said. Now, the new thing in this example is that there's a possibility of lending gold. Why does it make difference? Because if you go back to how we derived our story, now one component is that we assume that we would have physical gold with us from now until the expiration. But if there's a possibility of lending gold, there is no point in keeping gold with you. You may just lend gold and get paid for 3 months. So what is added here is that you will lend your gold as soon as you buy it, and you take the gold back 3 months later, and you'll get paid a little bit, and that payment should be added to this number. So in the end, instead of getting paid as capital T, you will get paid as capital T plus whatever you receive from lending money to someone else. Why would somebody borrow gold for 3 months? Why do people borrow gold for 3 months? The gold here we are talking about is more like this gold bar. I don't know whether, have you seen the gold bar? You have them in your home, at your home, maybe your parents keep them in some closet. Actually, many people keep gold bar at home in Korea. I don't know why they do that. I mean, to me, that looks very dangerous. But somehow the people do that. Some people do that, and you can buy gold bar and leave them in bank. But sometimes you have to pay for storage. So some people decide to keep them at home. But anyway, why would anyone want to borrow? Sorry? If you borrow gold bar, then you have to pay. And with a borrowed gold bar, what can you do? Okay, so that's perhaps that's what one possible use. So you may borrow gold and sell it to create short position in the spot market, and later you have to buy back and return the gold. Maybe that's the main thing. So there is a market for borrowing and lending gold. The lending rate isn't too high, because I mean it's not obvious what's the benefit of keeping gold for 3 months. I mean, this is a gold bar. You can use it to make necklace or earring or something like that, because you have to return gold bar 3 months later. So you can use it for party purpose, unless you want to impress someone by just taking the gold bar at your home. So there is a little bit of fee for lending gold bar, and that amount should be added here. If you add that number, then that amount should be added here. So in the end, that extra amount that you receive will be added to the futures price. So in the end, where that shows up, so it will be added, this part, it will be added somewhere here, plus something. And when you move ST to the right hand side, you may keep this positive number on the left hand side, or if you move it to the right hand side, you will have to subtract this amount from the right hand side. So I'm just trying to give you whether this number should be added or subtracted from the forward price. In the end, if you follow this thing carefully, when there's a possibility of lending gold, forward price will be lower. Okay, because that number should be added here, plus number, and when you move it to the right hand side, it will be minus. So another way to think about it is the following. If there's a possibility of lending gold, when you buy gold, you don't really pay this amount completely. So instead of paying $1,000, we may think of it as paying something like $995, because you will receive a lending fee immediately after the transaction. So while you are paying $1,000, right after that, if you can get paid $5, you may consider that as paying $995. So another way to think about it is the lending possibility is effectively lowering the spot price of gold. But everything else is exactly the same. The new part is by lending gold to someone. When the lending rate is, what is the number in this example? Lending rate is 1% per annum. So this is the lending rate. So we express the lending rate as, once again, log rate. So if it's not expressed as log rate, then you will have to use some other formula. But here, the lending rate is also log rate. So we subtract some number here. And this minus. So in the end, we are adding some number to the formula. Okay. Now this, if I write it as separately, so first part is minus E 0.25 R ST. So that's what we had before. And what we are adding here is we are multiplying this by exponential minus 0.01. That's what we are doing. So we are reducing the absolute value by about 1%. We started with minus value, so we are in fact adding about 1% of this amount. Okay. So this was minus. We are making it smaller. That means we are adding some number. So we are adding plus positive number. So in the end, this is what happened in the cash flow. What happens in the end is, because you can lend, you will get paid extra money. So you will have some, you are adding some positive number here. But since everything is expressed as the ratio relative to the current spot price, we are just multiplying this number to make adjustment. And later, so this part is still here, and we are adjusting this part. Instead of R, we are using R minus something. Income, possibility of income. So when you buy something in the spot market, you actually own it, and this may give you some income generating opportunity. Perhaps you can lend your gold to someone else. If it's stock, perhaps you receive dividend. So when there is such a possibility, the actual cost of buying thing in the spot market should be lower, because as soon as you pay ST, you actually receive some money. So the cost is net of that extra income. That's why we are subtracting some number here. If you understood the previous story, the next story is rather trivial. What if instead of lending gold and getting paid, what if the situation is the opposite? That is, when you buy gold, if you want to keep your gold in safe place, you need to actually pay to for the storage. Now, because these two cannot happen at the same time. Either you get paid or you pay. So this is somewhat different situation. If you need to pay for storage, and of course, the exact opposite thing will happen. Instead of paying $1,000 to buy in the spot market, you will have to pay extra $5 or something to buy gold if you don't want to keep it at your home. And therefore, it has the effect of increasing the spot price of the gold. And so I'll just skip this thing. Is in addition to the possibility of making income, it's also possible that you may have to pay extra to have this thing physically. The example we talked about is the cost of storage. So if it happens that with the gold, you have to pay extra to keep, store it somewhere safe, then that cost should be added to the cost of buying thing in the spot market. So the cost should be added, income should be subtracted from the spot price. Considering the possibility of what we call convenience deal. What it means is that some people like to have the underlying asset physically rather than just having forward contract, because they may need it. If you are using gold in your production process, if everything is certain, then you may not have particular preference for physical asset, because you know when you will need gold. You just need to buy it when you need it. The situation we are considering is a bit different. So if you are a manufacturer, but you don't know when you will need gold, so you want to have some extra gold in your storage just in case you need to use it immediately. In that situation, some people will want to have the underlying asset physically rather than as forward contract. If that is the case, then our previous claim that the left-hand side should be identical to the right-hand side doesn't work. People will prefer to have spot contract rather than forward contract. And therefore, the cost of spot contract should be higher than the cost of forward contract. And that's what we want to say here. Let's go over this thing once again. It's the exact same story, but since that's how we justify this formula, we are comparing buying something in the spot market. So that's one alternative. The other alternative is the combination of these things. You buy in the forward market and you borrow or you lend or borrow money from banks. So in this case, actually it's the opposite direction because we are considering all this combination of all these three. So what we said here is if you buy gold in the spot market now and sell forward now, and to buy gold, you need money, so you borrow money from bank. Then if you do that, the cash flow here is zero, and therefore cash flow here must be zero. That was the story that we made last time. But considering the possibility that you may actually want to use gold in between, then there's some extra cash flow in between, because if you use gold in the middle, then something happens in the middle, and therefore we cannot say that this should be exactly zero. So either way, you can think of this way, or you can think about the exact same thing the other way. So conclusion. So what's the conclusion? This is the conclusion. The conclusion is that the right-hand side that includes the spot price should be higher because people prefer to have the underlying asset physically. So we may just stop here and say that's our conclusion, or alternatively, we may introduce some extra variable y and say that if we subtract something from here, we can make sure that the left-hand side equals right-hand side. So that quantity y is what we call convenience yield. Now, but this convenience yield is a bit different from the other two because this is rather hard to determine. You cannot really observe the convenience yield. For storage cost, perhaps you can see how much people pay to store gold. For income, perhaps you can see how much people get paid when they lend gold. So these numbers are, at least in principle, observable. You may see in the marketplace. This number is hard to see because this is convenience yield. It represents the degree of satisfaction of having something physically instead of having something in the forward contract. So it's hard to see in reality. So this is just rather abstract concept. So if you don't want to deal with something you don't see, you may just stop here and say that's what we can say. The spot price must be higher than implied by this formula. Okay, any question? So depending on your preference, you may like the second line more than the first line. So if you want to have equality, you need to introduce some new variable. If you don't need equality, you may just stop here and say that's what we can say in case convenience yield is important. So when we think about convenience yield, it is necessary to distinguish these two types of commodities. So there is for some commodities, convenience yield is important. For some other commodities, convenience yield is not important, and that's why we make this distinction. So for certain commodities, some asset, convenience yield is not important. So we will call them investment assets. We call them investment asset because for these assets, for these commodities, people are buying them mostly for financial investment with the hope that they'll make money, profit by buying at low and selling at high. Gold is typically considered investment asset because many market participants trade gold, not because they really need gold, but because they think they can make money by trading, buying and selling gold. Stocks, index products, they are all investment assets. People don't buy stocks because they need to use it for real purpose. It's for financial investment. Some other assets have real use. Crude oil, copper, agriculture products, they are used for something real, production, consumption. So we call them consumption assets. So we make this distinction because we want to talk about convenience yield. So in the end, what we want to say is that when you think about consumption assets, you need to think about convenience yield. That's the important part. When you talk about investment assets, you don't need to think about convenience yield because convenience yield is not really important. It doesn't really matter. People don't get any satisfaction from keeping stocks physically. They may as well have stock just financially in both position. So we make this distinction, but this distinction is not absolute as we discussed in the example. Gold is used by some manufacturer for real stuff. For them, they may say this is really consumption asset. If you think about it, other than some financial products, almost all of the commodities may be considered consumption assets because they are used for something real at some point. So the distinction is not absolute. We introduce this distinction just to help you that the convenience yield matters sometimes, but not always.